interested in hearing the views of the Commissioner-designate on these issues. Please, Commissioner-designate Hill, the floor is yours.
Grazie tante. Egregio Presidente.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chairman, honourable members. When President-elect Juncker gave me this portfolio, he told me that I speak the language of Shakespeare, and I do my best to be clear in my mother tongue. But first and foremost, in Molière's language, or at least my approximation of Molière's language, I would like to pay tribute to you and thank you for having invited me here today. And at the same time, I would also like to thank you for the time and that many amongst you you have given me even before this hearing.
I wanted to answer three main questions. First, why do I want the job? Second, what experience do I bring to it? And third, how will I approach this task? A task which is so important for jobs and growth, and therefore so important for European citizens. So why do I want the job? Because I want to play my part in responding to the two great challenges we face. The challenge of building confidence in Europe among our citizens, and the challenge of getting jobs and growth back into our economy. And personally, because I want Britain to be part of a successful European Union. That makes sense for Britain, and I believe it makes sense for the EU. My parents' generation went to war. My own grew up in a divided Europe, facing the threat of nuclear annihilation. When the Iron Curtain came down, where was it that the new democracies turned? They turned to the European Union, and how right we were to respond to that appeal. So yes, I want to work for the common European interest, and I want my country to remain part of a union of 500 million people with shared values, who live together, who work together, who trade together, and who face global challenges together. So what about me, and what will I bring to the job if I am confirmed? I am the son of a small businessman and a school teacher. I've worked half my life in government, half in business. I started out as an advisor to Kenneth Clarke and John Major in the 1980s and 1990s. After that, I set up my own company, so I know about the challenges of trying to build a business in a competitive environment. I left over 4 years ago when I entered the British government as a minister. And by the way, I've since disposed of any shareholding. I hold no shares. I'm not a member of any boards, and so I do not believe I have any conflicts of interest. In 2010, I became an education minister and was given the job of delivering the biggest reforms in education in a generation. Then I became a member of the British Cabinet, and I led the coalition government in the House of Lords. The House of Lords is a chamber that amends legislation and specialises in detailed scrutiny. It has many experts. No party has a majority. The biggest party has only 28% of the vote. So the only way to make progress is to build consensus and work across party lines. So I have delivered complex reform in a political environment. I have a proven record of building consensus, and I understand jobs and growth from a practical point of view. How will I approach this vitally important task which Jean-Claude Juncker has entrusted to me? Well, working with Jyrki Katainen, Valdis Dombrovskis, Pierre Moscovici, and my other Commission colleagues, I plan to build on what has been done led by Michel Barnier and this committee, to make sure we have a well-regulated financial services industry which works in the interests of the many and not the few. It was an extraordinary achievement to repair our financial system while the crisis was raging, and I want to place my tribute to my predecessor clearly on the record. The centrepiece of this work is, of course, the banking union, rooted in the single rule book of all 28 member states. My task now, if I'm confirmed, is to put the remaining pieces of the jigsaw in place and to make sure that it delivers the stability in our banking system that we all want to see. Yes, I come from a country outside the banking union, but the crisis highlighted how interdependent the 28 member states are. A strong banking union matters to us all, and I will do everything I can to make it a flagship for the European Union. We're all agreed there can be no going back to pre-crisis days. No going back to the wild risk-taking with its terrible toll on the jobs and living standards of so many of our citizens. No going back to our banks having to be rescued on the backs of our taxpayers. But I think we're also agreed that in the years ahead, we need a new drive on jobs and growth. While we must certainly continue to be vigilant for new risks emerging in our system, we should not expect to have to pass anything like the same volume of primary legislation in the next 5 years. And after all, good regulation should offer stability as well as rigour. At the same time, if evidence appears that we haven't always got the balance exactly right, we should be ready to make adjustments. There may be areas where we identify gaps. There may be areas where we need to fine-tune to make investment flows easier. This is indeed the challenge that lies at the heart of the Capital Markets Union. How do we increase investment, particularly into small and medium-sized businesses, while keeping regulation effective? Within this broad approach, I've set myself 5 main priorities. First, to implement what's already been agreed. This alone will be a major task. The outstanding delegated and implementing acts amount to over 400 separate measures, from MiFID II to Banking Union to Solvency II to CRD4. In all we do, we will ensure a fair and open process with you and the Council. Second, to make sure we tackle other major sources of risk by taking forward proposals that are currently under negotiation, such as on money market funds, benchmarks and structural reform. We also need to stay alert to any new emerging risks, such as those that can arise because of a lack of an effective resolution regime for non-bank financial institutions. Third, I'll work for the consistent implementation of international standards and principles and close loopholes that present risks to financial stability. We'll work closely with other G20 countries, and in particular, I will seek to deepen regulatory cooperation with the US. Fourth, I'll bring forward proposals for developing a capital markets union. This is a project for all 28. And the goal is clear: to help unlock the capital around Europe that is currently frozen and put it to work in support of Europe's businesses and particularly our SMEs. We need to broaden away from our dependence on bank funding by encouraging the growth of new alternative sources of finance. And I want to start by analysing the problem, identify the barriers to progress. But I think we can already see some likely areas of early priority, such as high-quality securitisation, helping to improve information on SME credit status, and finding an agreement on European long-term investment funds. Fifth, I want to explore how we can deliver more benefits of the single market directly to citizens. Rightly, over the last 5 years, we had to concentrate on big structural and institutional reforms. Over the next 5 years, I hope we can turn the telescope the other way and think more about how we can open up a better market for safe, transparent affordable retail products. I know that many in this House have taken the lead in championing consumer interests, and you'll have my support in the years ahead. We also need to think carefully about the development of digital and electronic payments, which could bring consumers great benefits in terms of cost and ease of use, but which will also need to be secure and well regulated. There's one overarching theme, and that, I think, is transparency. That is essential in terms of what we require financial institutions to do, because they need to know what risks they're taking and to explain those risks to their customers. Supervisors need to know too. Most of the rules that you've put in place all include tough transparency requirements, and rightly so in terms of helping to restore trust and with it, confidence. Finally, how will I work with you if I am confirmed? Once again, transparency will be essential. I will be open with this committee at all times, and I will be open with you about who I'm meeting. To do the job, I'll need to meet and talk to a wide range of people, because I've never believed that you can or should try to make policy in a vacuum. But I will certainly follow the practice of my predecessor in disclosing external meetings, and so will my officials. I think that that is essential in terms of building the right relationship with you. When I was in Strasbourg the other day, I had a dinner with Michel Barnier to ask for his advice. He had lots of useful tips, but one point above all. Always remember, he said, the importance of your relationship with this House. That is advice I've taken to heart, and it is advice that I will follow. I know that President-elect Jean-Claude Juncker has given me a great responsibility in asking me to take on this portfolio. If I'm confirmed, I will be a European Commissioner who defends the general interest, a European Commissioner who will work for all 28 member states, and a European Commissioner who never forgets that he is accountable to the directly elected members of this Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Designate. Now we start with the debate. And the first speaker for the EPP is Mr. Burkhard Balz. The floor is yours.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Lord Hill. Very briefly, I have two questions that are of particular importance to us. Firstly, financial institutions within the European Union appear to be increasing in complexity in their legal forms, particularly through